All right. Ready to dive deep into some serious wisdom today?
I'm always up for that.
We're going into The Monk Who Sold His Ferrari, this book by Robin Sharma.
Yeah.
It's supposed to, like reveal these 7 ancient virtues, but for like real life,
Yeah.
like for actually living a fulfilling life. Like
Mhm.
think Himalayan sages and a lawyer, like who's totally burned out, but then finds his way back to, like himself.
It's a classic for a reason, I
Yeah.
think a lot of people feel that way, like stuck, even if like on the outside everything looks, successful.
Yeah, exactly. So we've got this like high-powered lawyer, Julian Mantle,
Right.
and he's got like everything right.
Right.
Harvard law degree,
Mhm.
amazing car, the whole 9 yards.
Uh,
Then like bam, out of nowhere, a heart attack. It like totally changes his perspective on everything.
yeah, talk about a wake-up call, right?
Beautifully.
He realizes like he's built this life that's well, it's left him empty, unhealthy. So he makes this huge decision, like sells everything and just takes off to the Himalayas
Wow.
to find these legendary sages of Savannah.
Can you imagine just like dropping everything like that?
Yeah.
What did he learn from these sages that was so like life-changing?
So he learns these 7 virtues of radiant living. Each one's like a piece of the puzzle, right?
Yeah.
And they all help you create a more meaningful, joyful life.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Let's like break down these virtues.
Okay.
First up, master your mind.
Yes.
The book uses this like really cool analogy.
Mhm.
The mind is like a garden, right?
Mm.
If you take care of it, it flourishes.
Right.
But if you neglect it, it's like weeds just completely take over.
And let's be honest, these days, it's easy for that to happen.
Oh, yeah.
Information overload, all the bad news, that inner critic, it's a lot.
It really is.
Yeah.
I know, like, sometimes I totally let those weeds creep in.
Uh-huh.
But how do we fight that? Like, what did the sages teach?
Well, they talk about this thing called opposition thinking. And it's not about, like, suppressing negative thoughts.
Uh-huh.
It's about intentionally replacing them with positive ones.
Oh, okay. So, like, if I catch myself thinking I'm terrible at this,
Right.
I should immediately think I'm learning and I'm getting better every day.
Exactly. It's about changing your focus,
Yeah.
actively building a more positive inner world.
Mm-hmm.
The monks would use prayer beads, like a physical reminder.
Oh, wow.
Each bead is a chance to redirect your thinking.
I like that. That's a neat trick. It makes it seem less overwhelming,
Right. It's small changes, consistent ones that lead to big changes over time.
Yeah. Okay, there's also this thing called the secret of the lake technique. What is that?
Oh, okay. So picture this, right?
Yeah.
It's early morning in the Himalayas.
Okay.
This like crystal clear lake, and the sages are gathered around it. They're visualizing their goals as if they're already happening, like harnessing the mind to create their reality.
So they're like basically saying that if you can like really picture it, you can make it happen.
Well, it's not exactly magic, but
Right.
there's something to be said for the power of visualization, right?
Right.
I mean, athletes use it, entrepreneurs, even scientists are figuring out how it works in the brain.
That's amazing. If these Himalayan monks are using it to like reach their potential, maybe we should all be trying it.
Ah.
Okay, on to virtue number 2. Follow your purpose. What does that even mean?
So the book puts it pretty simply. The purpose of life is a life of purpose.
Okay.
It means matching your actions with your values, with your passions, the stuff that makes you feel alive.
I feel like a lot of people get hung up on the idea that their purpose has to be something huge,
Yeah, it doesn't have to be about saving the world, right? It can
Yeah.
be anything that gives your life direction, meaning.
Mm-hmm.
There's this story in the book about Malika Chand.
Okay.
She's a teacher, and her school burns down.
Oh, wow.
You'd think that would be devastating, right?
Yeah.
But she sees it as an opportunity,
Yeah.
a chance to build something even better for her community.
That's like a great example of turning a setback
Yeah.
into like a positive thing.
Yeah.
But how do we even like start to figure out our purpose?
So the monks have this 5-step method for setting goals
Okay.
that can help with that.
Okay.
First, create a clear picture in your mind of what you want. Remember visualization.
Right. Like really see it happening.
Exactly. Then you got to have that positive pressure, to keep you motivated.
Yeah.
Set a deadline, celebrate those milestones along the way.
Okay.
But most importantly, enjoy the process.
So it's not just about the end goal. It's about the whole journey.
Exactly. That's a big part of finding and living your purpose.
All right. On to virtue number 3.
Yeah.
Practice Kaizen. What's that?
Kaizen is it's a Japanese idea.
Okay.
It means basically constant self-improvement. Small, steady changes that add up to big results. Think baby steps, not leaps.
So instead of trying to change everything at once,
Right.
I should focus on one small thing I can improve,
Yeah.
like drinking more water or learning a new language.
Exactly. The book actually has this push-up challenge.
Okay.
The point is that even where we feel weak, we've got potential. It's about pushing yourself a little each day.
That makes a lot of sense. Small changes feel less scary and easier to keep up long term.
And the nice thing about Kaizen,
Yeah.
it's not about perfection. It's about trying to be better than yesterday. Embracing growth.
That's a good way to put it.
Mm.
This is really making me think, okay, virtue number 4, respect your time.
Mhm.
How do we even do that?
Right, so the book compares time to a strip of bacon.
Okay.
It's got those like meaty, valuable parts, right?
Right.
And then it's got the fat that you need to trim away.
So we need to figure out what's really important and cut out the stuff that's wasting time.
Right. Are we doing things that move us towards our goals? Things that make us happy? Or are we letting our time get wasted on things that don't really matter?
That's a great visual. And then there's the ancient rule of 20. 80% of our results come from just 20% of our effort, right?
So the trick is to find those crucial 20% activities,
Yeah.
the ones that really make a difference, and prioritize them, like ruthlessly. It's about being intentional with how we spend our time.
It's like figuring out what really matters and putting our energy there.
Exactly. And that might mean saying no to some things so we can say yes to what really matters.
Okay, on to virtue number 5. Selflessly serve others. Isn't that kind of a paradox? We're talking about self-improvement, but then it's about focusing on other people.
It might seem counterintuitive, but
Yeah.
the monks believe that real happiness comes from making a positive impact around us,
Okay.
recognizing that we're all connected and our actions affect others.
So it's not about, like, sacrificing our own happiness.
No.
It's about finding a balance between taking care of ourselves and caring for others.
Exactly. And the book drives this point home with the story of Julian seeing this older woman eating alone.
Right.
It's such a small moment, but it really highlights the importance of seeing the humanity in everyone.
It's like a reminder that even a small act of kindness can make a difference.
Right.
And it creates a sense of connection and community.
Think about those times you helped someone, volunteered your time, or just listened to a friend who needed to talk.
Yeah.
Didn't that give you a sense of purpose, of satisfaction?
Totally. It's like there's this deep joy that comes from knowing you've made a difference, even a small one.
Exactly. It doesn't have to be this huge gesture.
Yeah.
It's finding those everyday chances to lift others up, you know?
Yeah. This is really making me rethink my priorities. Okay, let's move on to virtue number 6. Embrace the present. This one feels really relevant today with how busy everything is.
Absolutely. It's the antidote to all the distractions, all the worries that pull us away from now.
Yeah.
The monks believe the present moment is the only one we actually have control over.
Okay, but how do we do that?
It takes practice,
Okay.
but it's worth it.
Yeah.
The book suggests mindfulness.
Okay.
Things like meditation, being in nature, even just paying attention to your breath, your senses.
So it's about training our minds to be more aware, more in the moment, instead of dwelling on the past or worrying about the future.
Exactly. Remember the story of Peter and that magic thread?
Yeah.
He
Right.
learns that if you fast forward through life, you miss all the beauty, all the little things that make it rich.
That one really stuck with me. It's a good reminder to slow down, enjoy the journey, appreciate those small moments.
And they're fleeting, those moments. If we don't pay attention, they'll slip away before we even realize it.
Okay, last one, virtue number 7. Live with discipline. I gotta say, that word doesn't always sound fun.
I get that. But the monks didn't see discipline as restrictive.
Okay.
They saw it as the key to freedom. When you've got self-control, you're not a slave to your impulses.
Yeah.
You can make choices that match your values, your goals, even when it's tough.
So it's not about denying yourself things.
Right.
It's about making choices that build the life you want.
Exactly. And remember that analogy with the cable made of tiny wires?
Yeah.
Small actions, consistently done, powered by discipline, lead to amazing strength.
It's like working those mental muscles, one rep at a time. Like,
Yeah.
instead of scrolling through social media, I use that time to work on a project or learn something new.
Perfect example. And the monks also talked about rituals, routines. When you have that structure, it's easier to stay on track.
So it's not just willpower, it's building an environment that helps us achieve our goals.
Exactly. You're setting yourself up for success by building habits that support the life you want.
This is making me realize discipline isn't about being hard on yourself, it's about being intentional,
Right.
creating a system that helps us make good choices.
That's it.
Wow, we covered a lot. These 7 virtues are a really powerful guide for living a more fulfilling life.
And the best part is you don't have to do them all at once, right? Start with one that speaks to you. See how it changes things.
That's great advice. All right, before we go on, I want to ask you, the listener, which virtue resonates with you the most right now? Which one are you most curious about? Take a moment to think about that, and we'll be right back to keep exploring the monk who sold his Ferrari.
Welcome back. I hope you've had some time to, really think about those virtues. We've talked about the 7 from the monk who sold his Ferrari.
Yeah.
But now we got to, unpack them, you know?
It's not enough to just, know them in our heads. We
Yeah.
have to see how they work in real life.
Exactly. So let's go back to that 5th virtue. Selflessly serve others. I'm still trying to wrap my head around how that fits with self-improvement.
It's about realizing that real happiness, real fulfillment, it often comes from giving back, contributing to something bigger than ourselves.
Okay.
It's about shifting our focus outward,
So it's not about ignoring our own needs. It's
Exactly.
about that balance between self-care and caring for others. Exactly. And the book really makes this point with that story of Julian and the elderly woman eating alone.
Yeah.
It's this small moment, but it says a lot about recognizing everyone's humanity.
It's like a reminder that even a small act of kindness can have this ripple effect, and it builds connection, community.
Think about those times you've helped someone, maybe volunteered or just listened to a friend who was struggling.
Yeah,
Didn't that give you a sense of purpose? A feeling of satisfaction?
totally. It's like this deep joy that comes from knowing you made a difference,
Yeah.
even if it was something small.
That's the beauty of it. It doesn't have to be some big, grand gesture. It's
Yeah.
about finding those everyday opportunities to lift others up.
Okay, let's move on to virtue number 6.
Yeah.
Embrace the present. I think this one is especially important now with how connected we all are all the time.
It's the antidote to all the distractions and anxiety, all those things that pull us away from the now.
Yeah,
The monks believe that the present moment is the only one we actually have control over.
that's true, but how do we do that? How do we actually quiet our minds and be present?
It takes practice,
Yeah,
but it's worth it.
yeah,
The book talks about mindfulness,
right.
meditation, spending time in nature, paying attention to your breath, your senses.
So it's about training our minds to be more aware, to be in each moment, instead of dwelling on the past or worrying about the future.
Exactly. And remember that story, Peter and the Magic Thread?
Yeah.
He learns the hard way that if you rush through life, you miss out on all the beauty, all the little things that make it so rich.
That's so true. It's like a reminder to slow down, savor the journey, appreciate the little things.
And those moments, they're fleeting, you know?
Yeah.
If we aren't paying attention, they're gone before we even realize it.
Okay, last one, virtue number 7. Live with discipline. I gotta admit, that word still feels kind of intimidating.
I understand that. But the book frames discipline as a path to freedom, not restriction. It's about mastering our impulses so we can make choices that match our values and goals.
So it's not about depriving yourself.
Right.
It's about making conscious choices that lead to the life you want.
Exactly. Remember the analogy of the cable with all those tiny wires?
Yeah.
It shows how small, consistent actions with discipline can lead to incredible strength.
It's about building those mental muscles one step at a time. Instead of spending hours on social media, I use that time to work on a personal project or learn something new.
Perfect example. The monks also emphasized rituals, routines. By creating structure and consistency, it's easier to stay on track.
So it's not just about willpower. It's about creating an environment that helps you reach your goals.
Exactly. You're setting yourself up for success by building habits that support the life you want.
This is making me realize that discipline isn't about being harsh on yourself. It's about being intentional.
Right?
It's about building a framework that empowers you to make good choices.
That's a great way to put it.
Wow, we've covered so much ground today. These 7 virtues really show us what it takes to live a fulfilling life.
And the great thing is, you don't have to do it all at once.
Right.
Just start with one that speaks to you and see what happens.
Before we wrap up this part of our deep dive, I want to ask you, the listener, a question.
Okay.
If you had to choose just one of these virtues to focus on this week, which would it be and why? What's one small step you can take today to really embody that virtue in your life? Think about that, and we'll be back soon with our final thoughts. Welcome back to our deep dive into the monk who sold his Ferrari.
It's been a really interesting look at these 7 virtues, right?
Totally. And before we wrap up, I wanted to circle back to something that really stuck with me. Ritual.
Yeah, that's a big part of the book. The monks thought rituals were super important for like building discipline and good
It's
habits.
like creating a structure for a more intentional life, right?
Exactly. They noticed that when they had set times and routines for certain things, it was easier to make those things automatic, less about willpower.
Yeah, that makes sense. Like if you do something at the same time every day, it just becomes part of your routine.
It's like you create this groove in your mind. The more you do something at a specific time, the easier it is to just do it without thinking.
So what kinds of rituals did these monks actually practice?
Well, one they really focused on was the ritual of early awakening, waking up with the sun.
Oh, wow. They were definitely morning people.
They thought that uh, starting the day with intention, with a purpose, it just set the tone for the whole day.
I can see how that would be powerful. Waking up before everyone else, having that quiet time for yourself.
They felt those early hours were like super clear, super creative. When the mind is quiet, no distractions.
Yeah.
And they also thought sunshine was really important for, the body and mind. More energy, more well-being.
So even if you're not a morning person, it might be worth trying to wake up a little earlier, see how it feels.
Yeah, maybe.
I'm willing to try it. What other rituals did they do?
Another important one was the ritual of solitude. Taking time each day to just reflect, look inward.
That sounds really necessary in our busy world.
They felt it was crucial for, connecting with your inner wisdom, getting clarity, perspective, and nurturing your soul.
It's like taking stock, making sure you're aligned with your goals, your values.
Exactly. And they suggested finding a quiet place wherever you can be alone with your thoughts. A spare room, a park, even just a corner of your home.
The important thing is to just have that space for yourself.
Yeah, and during that time, they emphasized disconnecting. No phones, no TV, just quiet.
Creating a sanctuary for your mind.
Right. And lastly, they practiced the ritual of abundant knowledge.
So they were always learning, always wanting to broaden their horizons.
Totally. They thought reading, studying, having meaningful conversations, all that was essential for wisdom, for living a more enlightened life.
It's about feeding your mind with new ideas, new perspectives, always challenging yourself to grow.
And it wasn't just like book smarts. They also valued practical skills, creative stuff, anything that could help them understand the world better and themselves.
It's about being a student of life, always curious, always wanting to learn.
Exactly. And it's a journey that never really ends.
Well said. As we finish our deep dive into The Monk Who Sold His Ferrari, I hope you've learned something valuable about these 7 virtues and the power of rituals.
Remember, it's not about changing everything overnight.
Right.
It's about small steps, steady progress towards a life that's more fulfilling, more purposeful, more joyful.
It's about embracing that journey of self-discovery and growth.
And if you want to learn more, I really recommend reading the book. It's full of wisdom and practical advice that can help you unlock your potential and live a more radiant life.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. We'll see you next time.